For decades, Israel and Iran waged a shadow war. Spies, cyber attacks, and proxy battles, rarely confronting each other directly. This conflict simmered beneath the surface, with both nations relying on covert operations, sabotage, and intelligence gathering to undermine each other's interests. The world watched as these secret skirmishes played out in the shadows, shaping the balance of power in the region without ever erupting into full-scale war. But in late 2024 and early 2025, that changed dramatically. The covert conflict exploded into open warfare, shattering the unspoken rules that had kept the region from the brink. Suddenly, the world was witnessing direct missile strikes, public threats, and military escalations broadcast live on global news networks. The fragile line between shadow operations and open conflict was crossed, and the consequences were immediate and far-reaching. The stakes are enormous. This is no longer a regional rivalry but a crisis threatening to engulf the entire Middle East and destabilize the world. The international community is on edge, as the risk of a wider war grows with every passing day. The conflict's ripple effects are being felt in global markets, diplomatic circles, and security agencies worldwide. For the first time in history, Iran launched a direct military assault on Israeli territory, sending waves of missiles across borders. Israel responded in kind, unleashing its own military might in a series of retaliatory strikes. The world watched as air raid sirens blared, defense systems lit up the night sky, and the specter of all-out war loomed larger than ever before. The era of deniable operations is over. The world is now forced to confront the reality of direct state-on-state conflict. Global leaders scramble to contain the crisis, holding emergency meetings and issuing urgent calls for restraint, but the situation remains volatile and unpredictable. To understand how we got here, we need to look back, at a time when these two nations were not enemies, and at the deep fears and ambitions that have fueled decades of animosity. The roots of this conflict stretch back through history, shaped by shifting alliances, revolutions, and the relentless pursuit of security and influence. Only by understanding these roots can we grasp the gravity of the current crisis. The story of Israel and Iran is not just about war, but about the hopes, fears, and choices that have brought us to this pivotal moment in history. Before 1979, Israel and Iran were unlikely partners, sharing intelligence, oil, and a common interest in countering Arab nationalism. Everything changed with the Iranian Revolution. The Shah was overthrown, and Ayatollah Khomeini's new regime made anti-Israel ideology central to its identity. Iran branded Israel the Little Satan, transforming a former ally into a sworn enemy. The new leadership sought to lead the Muslim world, challenging both Israel and Sunni Arab rivals. For Israel, this was a strategic nightmare. It lost a key partner and gained a powerful adversary with regional ambitions. Iran began exporting its revolution, building a network of influence across the Middle East. The stage was set for a long, unpredictable conflict, one that would be fought not on shared borders, but through proxies and covert operations. The events of 1979 laid the foundation for decades of hostility. Unable to fight directly, Iran and Israel turned the region into a battleground for proxies. Iran's axis of resistance, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, surrounded Israel, extending Tehran's reach. Hezbollah, Iran's most formidable proxy, became a powerful military force on Israel's northern border. Israel responded with targeted assassinations, cyber attacks, and thousands of airstrikes in Syria to disrupt Iran's network and prevent advanced weapons transfers. This war between wars maintained a fragile balance, with both sides calibrating their actions to avoid all-out war. The cycle of violence became routine, but the risk of miscalculation grew as weapons and ambitions escalated. The Shadow War's equilibrium was always precarious. One wrong move could ignite a regional firestorm. As the years passed, the stakes only grew higher. The fragile balance in the Middle East was shattered on April 1, 2024, when a powerful airstrike widely attributed to Israel obliterated Iran's consulate in Damascus. The attack left the building in ruins, sending shockwaves through the region and marking a dramatic escalation in the ongoing shadow conflict between Israel and Iran. Among those killed were several senior Iranian commanders, most notably Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi. Zahedi was not just a high-ranking officer, he was a crucial link between Tehran and Hezbollah, responsible for coordinating military strategy and logistics. His death, along with other key figures, dealt a significant blow to Iran's regional influence in military operations. The strike on a diplomatic compound crossed a critical red line, violating international norms and, in Iran's eyes, constituting a direct assault on its sovereignty. The attack was seen as an unprecedented provocation, raising fears of a wider conflict. While Israel justified the strike by claiming the consulate was being used as a military hub for planning attacks, Iran viewed it as a brazen violation of diplomatic immunity, an act that demanded a forceful and immediate response. In Tehran, pressure to retaliate mounted rapidly. Hardliners in government, the military, and the public all demanded action, with street protests and fiery speeches in parliament calling for a strong response to restore national pride and deterrence. Around the world, governments and military leaders braced for escalation. Diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent calls, while militaries across the Middle East went on high alert, preparing for the possibility of a broader regional conflict. The era of covert operations and proxy battles seemed to be over. The conflict had now entered a new, openly dangerous phase, with both sides preparing for direct confrontation. The Damascus strike became the spark that ignited this direct confrontation, setting off a chain reaction of threats, military movements, and global anxiety. The question was no longer if Iran would respond, but how it would do so, and just how far the conflict might spiral out of control, with the world watching every move. As tensions soared, the entire region, and indeed the world, held its breath, anxiously waiting for Iran's next move and hoping to avoid a catastrophic escalation. On April 13, 2024, Iran launched its first-ever direct attack on Israel. Over 300 drones and missiles fired from Iranian soil. The operation, codenamed True Promise, was a dramatic show of force, aiming to overwhelm Israel's air defenses and target military sites. The attack was historic, breaking decades of proxy warfare and sending a clear message. Iran could strike Israel directly. Israel, with help from the US, UK, France, and Jordan, mounted a remarkable defense, intercepting 99% of the projectiles. Only minor damage was reported, no fatalities. Despite the limited impact, the attack changed the conflict's nature, proving Iran's reach and resolve. For Tehran, it was a restoration of national pride. For Israel, a test of its alliances and defenses. The world now looked to Israel, wondering how it would respond to this unprecedented assault. The era of deniable conflict was over. Direct confrontation had arrived. The ball was now in Israel's court. After Iran's massive assault, Israel faced a critical choice: retaliate forcefully or heed international calls for restraint. Hardliners demanded a crushing response, but the US and allies urged caution to avoid a regional war. Israel opted for a precise, limited strike, targeting an air defense radar near Isfahan, close to Iran's sensitive nuclear facilities. The message: Israel could strike deep inside Iran, but chose not to escalate further. Iran downplayed the incident, allowing both sides to claim victory and step back from the brink. The exchange set a dangerous new precedent: direct state-to-state attacks with the risk of rapid escalation. Tensions remained high, with tit-for-tat strikes and assassinations continuing into 2025. The core issues, especially Iran's nuclear ambitions, remained unresolved. This was a pause, not a peace. The region stayed on edge, one misstep away from disaster. At the core of the Israel-Iran rivalry is one overriding fear: a nuclear-armed Iran. For Israel, this is an existential threat, unacceptable given Iran's rhetoric and support for anti-Israel proxies. Iran insists its nuclear program is peaceful, but its actions, enriching uranium, limiting inspections, fuel deep suspicion. The 2015 nuclear deal briefly curbed Iran's program, but the US withdrawal in 2018 led Tehran to accelerate enrichment. The nuclear issue now overshadows every military move, raising the stakes of any confrontation. Some in Israel see preemptive action as necessary. Some in Iran see nuclear capability as the only guarantee of survival. This unstable dynamic pushes the region ever closer to a potential nuclear crisis. The Israel-Iran conflict sent shockwaves worldwide, threatening global oil supplies and economic stability. The Strait of Hormuz, controlled by Iran, became a flashpoint. Any disruption could spike oil prices and fuel global inflation. The US and Europe urged restraint, while Russia and China called for diplomacy and blamed Western policies for the crisis. The conflict also shifted regional alliances. Sunni Arab states like Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE quietly cooperated with Israel against Iran, yet public anger over Gaza kept Arab populations hostile to Israel, exposing a rift between governments and their people. The escalation added new volatility to an already explosive region. The world watched anxiously, hoping diplomacy could avert disaster. As of June 2025, the Middle East stands at a critical crossroads. One path leads to devastating, all-consuming war, the other to a fragile, hard-won diplomacy. The stakes have never been higher. A single miscalculation, a misunderstood signal, or a rash decision could trigger a regional conflict of unprecedented scale, drawing in the United States and its allies, and potentially sparking a dangerous nuclear arms race that would threaten global security. The alternative is a renewed commitment to diplomacy, rebuilding nuclear agreements that have frayed over the years, and directly addressing flashpoints like the long-standing Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which continues to fuel instability and resentment. Easing regional tensions means not just managing crises, but also working to resolve the root causes that drive them. Without this deeper effort, any period of calm will be fleeting, a mere pause before the next eruption. A wider war would be catastrophic, resulting in a humanitarian disaster, economic collapse across multiple nations, and the total collapse of nuclear non-proliferation efforts, making the world far more dangerous for generations to come. The recent escalation has shown just how close the region is to the abyss, but it has also opened a narrow window for dialogue and negotiation. The shared fear of an uncontrollable war could, paradoxically, create new incentives for compromise and cooperation. The journey back from the brink will be long and difficult, requiring extraordinary courage, vision, and restraint from all sides involved. The world cannot afford to turn away or remain indifferent. Global security, economic stability, and countless innocent lives depend on preventing this fire from spreading any further. The choice between war and peace remains perilously unresolved, and the world watches, hoping for wisdom to prevail.